Ex-fiance wants to meet up after leaving me at the altar 4 years ago. I am not op. Posted by you. Throw RAEX dramas on our relationship advice. Original the 3rd of June 2021. Update the 4th of April 2021. Basically 4 years ago, I, F29, was supposed to be getting married to my fiance at the time. J. Everything was going perfect. I was in my dress, had my makeup on and taken pictures with my bridesmaids. I was pretty much ready to walk down the aisle when Jay's best man pulled me aside and said Jay was gone. He had gotten into a car and left, and no one was able to get a hold of him. I came home to our apartment and all his stuff was gone. He's been pretty much a ghost ever since he left me, and I had to force myself to move on. I ended up going on our honeymoon with my best friends, which was the best decision ever, and then put myself in therapy to heal the horrible trust issues I now have. I haven't heard from him once until today. I guess he got back in contact with an old mutual friend who gave him my number. Jay texted me and said wants to meet up and apologize. He says he has a lot to explain to me about what happened that day. I'm torn. I swore Jay was a dead memory, but my curiosity and desire to get closure with him is pestering me. My current boyfriend supports me whatever I decide, and I feel out of respect to him and how wonderful he's been. I should ghost Jay. I'm very confused. I never expected to hear from Jay again. I have no idea what to do. Please help. Update. First off, I just want to thank everyone for the advice. I honestly wrote the post to just vent my frustration and confusion and possibly get advice. I honestly forgot about the post for a few days until my sister and I were talking and she mentioned she saw a post from some girl getting left at the altar and ex showing up again years later. I told her it was mine, and she has been pushing me to do an update post. I figure it might be therapeutic to write everything down as final closing of the J chapter. This all happened 2 weeks ago. Against most of the advice, I did meet up with Jay. As a lot of you said, it did not add any value to my life. Also, it was part of a 12-step program and he was making amends. We met up at a park and my boyfriend came with me. He sat off to the side while Jay and I talked. I actually feel stupider after meeting with him. There were a lot of things in our relationship that would have had me out the door if I paid more attention and if he wasn't such a great liar. Basically, for the last year of our relationship, he was doing drugs and cheating on me. He had been struggling with his sexuality for years, and it's not surprising it ended up this way. Now knowing the truth, his family are incredibly homophobic and horrible people. I wanted nothing to do with them when we were together, but he insisted on them being around just for the big life events, like our wedding. The drugs were something to get him through the day and act like he was in love with me when he was actually in love with someone else. He had met his boyfriend at work, and I had actually met him a few times when I'd drop off lunch for Jay. When our wedding approached, his boyfriend said he needed to choose and Jay chose him. So he packed his bags up and pretended everything was great until his boyfriend picked him up and they moved 2 towns over. I asked him if he was still with his boyfriend and he said no. He thought he could quit the drugs once he was free of his family and lying, but he couldn't. His boyfriend found out and left him. He kept going, getting high and hooking up with randoms. One of his regular hookups ended up overdosing while they were asleep in the same bed and died, and he realized he had to get sober. He apologized for not just being honest with me and leading me on like he did. He wished he could go back and be truthful, because I would have been the most accepting of him being gay out of everyone. He said he missed me when he left because even though he didn't love me romantically, I was his best friend. It was a lot to take in. I told him, well, I'm glad he's okay and is doing better. I'd prefer for us not to have any contact moving forward, but I do forgive him. He said he understood and he was only in town for a few more days and he'd be gone for good again. I'll admit when I got home, I cried. My boyfriend held me and ordered me my favorite takeout. He's been really the best and didn't pressure me to talk about anything until I was ready. So if I got anything out of the worst day of my life, it's led me to who I'm with now. I think, like Op, I wouldn't have been able to resist meeting with the ex. Hell, at least she knows. Oop has a heart of gold but should stick to NC for good. New BF sounds like a legit good dude. All the best to both. Why was the only option for the ex to pretend like everything was great till the day of the wedding? And then for the BF to pick the ex up the day of the wedding? I'm confused why they couldn't have done this like the week before. Hell, even the day before the wedding? If people only make amends as part of a 12-step program, personally I would appreciate a heads up. This is the line that stood out to me. There were a lot of things in our relationship that would have had me out the door if I paid more attention and if he wasn't such a great liar. Her ex was a cheat and a manipulative lying liar, as well as a cruel, selfish man. But looking back, she can see the red flags her naive former self failed to notice. I wonder if his friends had any idea of who he really was and his drug habit. Or did he pull the wool over everyone's eyes? While the ex's upbringing can go some way to explaining his actions, it does not excuse them. He wasted years of her life and caused her such heartbreak. For his sake, and others in his life, I hope he does some drastic self-improvement. It sounds like she has a good, caring boyfriend and I hope they have a wonderful, happy life together and that she can move on. I wonder if, while it might make her feel rubbish now, that, in the long run, the explanation will make it easier to forget about it by removing that question of why. Oop is hurt and feels she didn't get anything out of it right now. But hopefully it helps her realize she didn't do anything wrong and her ex is just a jackass as suspected. So it was still just all about him and nothing of value was gained. Can we get the would have bought in here before I have an aneurysm? I know they tell you that you shouldn't expect forgiveness in 12-step programs. But something they don't tell you is that 99% of the time, these apology world tours come off as selfish, insincere, and generally come off as looking like you want something, rather than authentically apologizing. I do feel sympathy for the BF as queer person myself. Not excusing his actions in any form. But when your family will ruin your life for who you are, it can send an individual down a dark path and get innocent people like Op caught in the crossfire. How could you not agree to that meeting? I just have to know what that cowardly asshole had to say for himself. The ex disregarded OOP's feelings a second time by not being honest about their 12-step plan. Before meeting, he interpreted step 9 as, unburden myself. I personally do not care what reasoning he has. It's common sense to not have an affair partner. Run away with the affair partner. Disappear into thin air and essentially destroy someone who he claims was his best friend, publicly. If his boyfriend would have stayed, he most likely wouldn't have ever gone this far into changing. I do not care how closested you are. Everyone knows cheating is wrong. The boyfriend sounds like a keeper. As traumatic as it all was, at least you didn't marry him. Oh geez. Heartbreaking all around. Hope Oop is living a happy life with her boyfriend now. Sometimes closure can be good. At least with this. Oop can have that confirmation and validation that it wasn't anything she did that caused the awful end to their relationship, even if she'd already accepted that was the case. Having that final validation can be healing in and of itself. My heart breaks for her though, because no one should ever have to go through that. It's not made clear whether the ex genuinely wanted to make the amends and went about it like 12 steps tell you to, or if he was doing it to ease his own guilt over the situation and give himself closure, irrespective to OOP's feelings and needs. I'm hoping it's the former, because it means he's grown as a person. I'm glad Oop found someone so supportive of her in the end, and I hope they're living happily together. I don't understand the whole make amends thing in this context. He didn't make amends. He maybe apologized, but it sounds more like he just gave a bunch of excuses. Doesn't making amends mean something more than an apology? And how can you make up for something like this? Forget the emotional aspect. Did he give her all the money she presumably spent on this? Offer to pay for her pain and suffering? Apologies are generally worthless in cases like this. Particularly so when you're only making one because someone told you you're supposed to follow a checklist. I honestly don't understand why 12-step programs include getting forgiveness from the victim. It completely ignores the victim's feelings, and no one feels good about being forgiven without doing anything of value and just spouting excuses. Forgiveness and the strength to move on comes from within. Oop is so lucky. Not everyone gets closure.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.